Ellen, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Ellen Cow. I'm an SVP at Reddit. I started in business development and have been adding different things in the startup way. So I've been covering also mobile, growth, data, and sales. I've been at Reddit for about a year and a half, and we're going through a lot of change, so a lot of interesting things to talk about.
Great, hi everyone, and thanks for sticking around. It's been a long event. I'm Maria Karavanova. I'm the head of business development and partnerships at Cloudflare, and our mission at Cloudflare is to build a better internet. So we do that by making any website report property faster and safer. The way we define business development at Cloudflare is a lot of channel and partnerships, alliances, and big strategic deals, and also international expansion, things that we do to capture market and growth internationally. Prior to, I know Sharon asked us to talk a little bit about kind of how we got to where we were. So I've been with Cloudflare for about 3 years. It's a very different place than it was from when I joined 3 years ago. But prior to that, I spent a little bit of time in venture capital, and I did business development at a completely different scale at Boeing, so airspace. So I've seen a variety of different cycles, and it's exciting kind of to compare airspace to how we do things in tech sometimes. Originally I'm from Bulgaria, so I've been here for about 15 years. Thanks for having me.
Great. I'm Andrea Pitts. I'm the Vice President of Sales at Arena Solutions. Arena is a product development company. We sell and develop enterprise applications in the cloud for companies that make physical products. So companies like GoPro, Beats by Dre, Sonos. These are companies that use our solution to kind of manage their product development process. And so I've been the head of sales for going on almost 4 years. Prior to that, I'm going to show my age in about 25, 30 years worth of managing, growing, building sales organizations. Back in the day when we called them telemarketing. I did that too. So that's the genesis of what I've done is pretty much building those kinds of teams. I think one thing that's significant I'll refer to a lot this evening is that the current CEO that's in place in this company, this is the 5th company that I've either chased him to or he's dragged me to. So we have a relationship for about 20 years, and the reason for that is because he's a sales-driven CEO. Many of you in this audience work for leaders that have a particular bend or way that they go. Mine is the sales way, which is great for that triangle of sales, marketing, and the CEO. Some of you might have finance-driven CEOs or leaders, technology, product, and each of those backgrounds, they make decisions for the organization based on that. I think I'm the lucky one. Not that the others are bad, I'm here to tell you, but I think I'm the lucky one, and I'll use that example and why I think that's a great thing and how we work things at Arena. So I have lots to say about that.
Great. So this panel is unique in that we have 2 former VCs on the panel too. So both Ellen and Maria have been in my chair before they're in the chair that they're in. And maybe just talk a little bit about how now that you're in an operating role, you've been in an operating role before, then you're in venture capital, and now that operating role. Talk a little bit about how the experience as an investor or board member has colored how you do your job, how you think about your job, and your role with the organization.
So I was at Hunter Perkins for about 7.5 years before joining Reddit. Before that, I worked at 3 startups that got acquired by Microsoft. So it was kind of a weird path, but I also worked at PA Systems. So I had about maybe 7, 8 years of operating experience before going into VC. Going into VC was different because you just see so much. You see so many different companies, you see so many different people, and it really helped kind of hone my skills in working with different types of people, in assessing different types of executives. We did a lot of hiring, and you could see how people did over a bunch of different hires. So you could hire, I think I hired over the course of my time at Hunter, helped hire 7 different heads of sales. And you could see over the course of the time, which better, which ones did worse, which ones needed help where. So you get a much different sense of sales than working in one company with one person running sales for a long period of time. So I'd say it helps you in assessing people and figuring out how to work with people. It helped me in thinking about what directions companies were going in assessing different corporate cultures and seeing how people drive change, and in thinking about different ways that that I worked well and in what environments I worked well. And so coming back into Reddit after working as a VC was very helpful in figuring out what kinds of people I wanted to hire, how to try to get people to where I wanted them to go, and just being a lot more flexible in my work style.
So I have a much shorter experience than Ellen on the VC side, but I was with Intel Capital, joined right about 2010 when venture capital funds were beginning to invest again after they had slowed down significantly in 2008 and 2009. So I was focused on consumer internet in the beginning, so investing in tons of social gaming companies, which were considered strategic at the time for where Intel was headed, and then I switched to the enterprise SaaS side of the things, specifically focused on security. What was interesting in my case is that I had kind of a rocky start where when I started at Intel Capital, we had to shut down a couple of companies. And I witnessed things like founders suing each other, and us looking for a CEO replacement. And I think it shaped how I view what a venture capitalist brings to the table for a company he or she has invested in, and also on the operating side now, I'm a lot more sensitive to the pressures that founders are facing when they have to report to the board. And I'm also very sensitive to how you spend a limited amount of cash, so I'm completely okay being lean and scrappy, which is not always the culture that we have here in the Valley. I think the advantage of having someone with former VC experience on your teams is that they have that strategic view that Helen was talking about. They've seen a lot of companies through a lot of cycles. They've made senior hiring decisions. And also, they have that big picture, where is the company headed next, after the A, after the B, how do we scale it and how do we grow it. It has definitely helped me as I'm looking through our ecosystem and partnership landscape to think through who should we partner, how should we partner, how will the deal be structured. So that's been very helpful.
Great, thanks. So yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, but to add to what Marie said, one of the things that really did shape me was watching companies struggle, and it's made me a lot more conservative about how we spend money at Reddit, how we hire at Reddit, laying off people from working with a portfolio company that's laying off people. It's such a hard experience that you become a lot more careful about hiring and how you're going to move people around and how you think about people issues within a company. It made me a lot more conservative.
Interesting. Okay, so those comments are a great segue to what we thought we would cover as our first section here is really scaling, and how do you know that you're ready to scale? When do you really start to ramp up your go-to-market side? If you just look at software companies, kind of in general, even mature software companies, over 50% of revenue is spent on sales and marketing, and most of that actually goes to sales. So the vast majority of money is not going to engineering, it's going to sales and marketing, and in particular to the revenue generating functions of the company, because hopefully there's a quick turn ROI on that. So, and Andrea, let's start with you, because Arena is one of our portfolio companies, and for a while, Arena was kind of tootling along the relatively slow growth, and you guys are really getting your stride, and it's now the fastest growing company, and it's fun. And that's allowing you to add people at a much faster clip. So, what did you do to lay the groundwork to get to that rapid growth phase, and kind of how do you know that you're ready to scale?
Boy, am I living it right now. So just to give you an idea, in May, I had 13 people on my sales team. Today I have 28. I expect to finish start 2015 around 35. and then we have a growth path into 2016. So we're talking about scaling. But let's go back a little bit, because as Sharon said, Arena languished in this small business kind of space. SB kind of businesses were the primary target. As a matter of fact, you know, we were the de facto standard for startups in Silicon Valley. We got some of the coolest companies. NestLab started with 10 people. Look at them today. So that's the kind of company that started with a few seats of Arena, and all of a sudden they're being bought by billions of dollars by Google and Apple and so on. Beats by Dre, another one. So, you know, the fact that when I look back, because this is a question that we had talked about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, you know, there's a couple of things that took place. First of all, back in the day when we were languishing, it wasn't a good product. It was great for the small business, but you've got to have the product that can compete. It can sit at the table with the big dogs, compete, be down selected, compete, and start winning those deals. We never were down selected back in the day. This was before my time. So our CEO and the team, the board spent, you know, took a lot of our funds and put it in development to make it a better product, so we could sit at the table. You can't win deals if you can't sit at the table, right? So we had to be able to sit there and then start winning them. So that was the one thing that needed to happen. So work on the product. And then we started seeing a shift. We started seeing a shift in our ASPs. Our ASPs almost tripled. The first quarter that happened, we were like, oh my God, what do we have? We think maybe it's a blip, let's not do anything, let's just kind of see what happens. Second quarter, it remained the same. We were being down selected all of a sudden. We were sitting at the table and we started winning. So all of a sudden these product shifts that we made were kind of table stakes, allowing us to sit at the table. Then we also said, well, so ASPs are consistent, consistently high. Cloud acceptance. So imagine being GoPro and you're now going to put your critical IP in the cloud for all the world, potentially the city, so they think, right? So, but all of a sudden, that cloud acceptance, we were the first call they were making. Larry Ellison came out a couple of years ago and said, I was kidding, the cloud isn't crazy, it's the future of this company, okay? Those are the kinds of things that, you know, we were seeing. So this cloud acceptance, we were being called before the on-premise solutions were. And then our main competitor, that most of us came from, Agile/Oracle, had a lackluster roadmap for now the second year in a row. All these things and these factors told us, and scale, that basically it's time to go. And now you need to start scaling your sales and marketing team. And about a quarter and a half ago, we're given the approval, and here's where I'm sitting today, knee-deep in the middle of it.
And what were so you talked about the metric of ASP, but what are the other kind of metrics that you were looking at that gave you the confidence? So not just there was a lot that shifted in the market, the big picture landscape, but what were the metrics that let you see, you know, we should spend more on marketing, we should spend more on sales?
Yeah, so, also the manufacturing, we keep a very close eye on the manufacturing sector, because those are the people that buy our product. So if the manufacturing sector is growing, inevitably we're going to grow as well. They're going to add more employees, and so that's another factor that we always keep a look on. Actually, as manufacturing was improving over the past few years, you saw kind of that slight improvement. Employment rate was coming down, people were finding jobs, but in manufacturing, it remained flat. It remained flat. So we're like, we have a pretty conservative CEO. And so when we started seeing also that industry trend of manufacturing growing, we knew that, okay, that's another indicator. So ASPs going up, the size of business that we were selling into was also going up again, languishing in the small business, 25 and under employee size kind of companies. All of a sudden, we were selling deals in a higher ASP in companies that were 25 and above. That's our line of demarcation we need to get rid of. It's on our website, we can't see it. So we're getting rid of that, by the way, our marketing friends. But we also saw the size of businesses that we were doing business with going up and on a consistent basis. That was another metric we were paying attention to. ASPs were the big one, and the size of companies.
So we're often looking at when we're either in an
previous case, we led around the financing to help you expand to scale, or when we're making a new investment. And we're looking at things, very simple metrics that tell you whether you're ready to scale. Things like percent of reps who attain quota on a regular quarterly basis. So, do most of the people, most of the time, make their number. That says you have achieved product market fit and you have achieved a channel to market that is working. So, and when we say channel to market, that means, for example, it's telesales or it's outside sales. You have a value proposition and a sales motion that is resonating with the customers, that's letting them buy with enough regularity that the sales people are productive. And when you bring in new sales reps, do they ramp on a relatively predictable schedule over into a relatively predictable level? Those kind of things. So we're often asking companies for very granular sales rep productivity data. And it's funny because sometimes companies get all defensive and they don't want to give us the sales rep names, like we're going to recruit individuals out and put them in another company or something. People get very protective about that, and so we often just say redact the names. I just want to know, A through Z rep, when did he or she start, how much revenue did he or she generate every quarter since inception, and just lay out the cohort of each, sales rep by sales rep, and you can see, can companies get a rep productive and keep her productive, and can they bring on a new person, and can she ramp with a degree of predictability? Because if yes, then let's keep hiring. I mean, one of the best examples I ever saw was we had Mark Leslie on board, actually the company that I said about Balance Scorecard. He was on that board, and he was on the board of VMware when it was still private, and they had what they called an open to buy for sales reps, because the sales rep came on, was highly productive, paid the cost of the sales back repeatedly, and so they had no budget for sales. It was just as many as you can hire, keep hiring until the marginal person becomes unproductive. So that's extreme scaling, but most of what we're going to put a lens on here this evening is that early in scaling phase. And if you haven't seen it, there's a group called Startup Compass that does a ton of highly quantitative research for startups all around the notion of premature scaling. So the number one cause of death is premature scaling, which is spending money before you're actually really ready to ramp. So, and that's all just wasted energy, spinning your wheels, hiring sales and marketing people when you haven't yet achieved the product market fit in the channel that is working. So, I have to give a shout out to Scale, because when we talked about scaling, I was given two pieces of advice. And you can probably name the people that gave me this advice, Sharon. The first one was, don't mess around trying to find your own people. We want fast scale, we want fast growth. Hire the firms. Hire the professional recruiting firms that will get you the people you need. And I'd never really used firms before. It's basically spend the money. It's going to be money well spent. I can tell you so far it has been. The second thing is you could fail very easily if your onboarding process isn't tight. And so we spent a lot of time doing that. And I'm here to tell you that of the 6 salespeople we hired, they contributed in their first 3 months on board. We have a highly complex product to 20% of our new business sales. So they were contributing within 3 months.
How about other comments on the topic? How do you know when you're ready to scale, either from your VC days or from your current jobs?
So I'm just curious, how many people here on who is working for a company that's freemium or has freemium as part of their business model? Raise your hand. Okay, just a handful of people. So is everyone else B2B enterprise? Raise your hands. Okay, so you would agree with me it's a completely different model, both for scale and for sales, depending on what your company is doing. So at Cloudflare in particular, for the first 2 years that I was with the company, we had a free product and a $20 per month product. It was all self-serve, all direct, not a single salesperson. So customers were finding us because, as Andrew is saying, the onboarding process was very simple. So we spend a lot of time on the technology and thinking through how to make it easier, how to make it seamless, how to make it, how do we take what takes 5 minutes to onboard a customer down to a couple of clicks. So we spent a lot of our early years trying to solve those problems, and we did not hire a single salesperson until 2.5 years into the company, and even today we are all inside sales. So we have people picking up the phone, but we're very laid back when it comes to sales. In terms of scaling, things that we did that worked really well, we focused on our channel and our partners, and thought through who are the partners who can integrate our products and make it even easier to get to get the performance and security that Cloudflare offers activated much faster. So as a result, I'd say the business development function, the partnership functions, was a lot better developed before we started hiring salespeople. So it really depends on what your company does. I would personally argue, in our case, it was wiser to start with business development and have like the founders and the very technical employees close the initial sales and be involved in the sales process. Because that gave us an opportunity to lay the foundation and the systems and documentation process, customer support, and everything else before, so in order to hire more salespeople. Because once you hire the sales reps, they're hungry, you have to be able to feed them, so you want to have everything else aligned and in place so they can make the commissions and be happy. In terms of a couple of metrics to add to what Sharon and Andrea were saying, one of the things that we look very closely at, and since the $0 and $20 per month, we've added an enterprise plan and other plans, but we look very closely at retention. So we're looking at how many customers renew and like the length of the contract, the spend, and so forth.
So we at Reddit are actually customer Cloudflare, so I can relate to the fact that having a product engineer involved in the sales process was extremely helpful for us. It convinced us that we're going to get the support that we wanted, felt special, and we really had this unique case where we had so much research that we wanted to make sure that our partner could handle it. So that was actually very helpful for us. For Reddit, one of the key things that has driven our beginning to scale has been how we want the company culture to be. So we've never wanted to be a sales organization. There's some companies that are very sales driven. For us, we're very community driven. So we wanted to build out sales as we built out the rest of the organization. And we wanted to build out a model where it was not going to be 100 or 200 salespeople. We're much more heavily focused on self-serve. So that's been what's driving our scaling. It's, now we've got our self-serve product up and running. We've got people who are able to handle it and maintain it. We've got, now we have 2 managed salespeople, and we're probably going to hire some more because we've got, an organization that's now 65 people instead of 25 people. So the idea of adding, a few more salespeople is not going to tip the culture in a certain direction. The other piece that was very helpful for us in thinking about hiring more is just our pipeline. So we've got a really huge pipeline of inbound requests, people who are interested that fit the profile of customers that would be good for Reddit, and we don't have enough people to handle it. So we've been a little bit more reactive and proactive, not looking at, not looking forward that much, but a little bit looking at how we want to build a company and how we manage the inbound interest.
And
I was gonna say, I'd be curious to hear from Andrea what sales tools you're using at the company, and I can kind of share what we've experimented with. But
Yeah, that's part of this is some of the great tools in infrastructure. Do you want to tackle that now?
Go for it, yeah.
So, huge Salesforce, huge Marketo. Marketing uses Hoovers for much of its to find and perfect lists and such. We recently did a study because we needed new contacts. We had old contacts in our database with this notion of feeding the beast, you made mention of something like that. It's stamped on, that's why I have bangs, because I hide the feed the beast that is now stamped on my forehead because of all these salespeople I've hired. And so this, that's, I go to sleep thinking of it, I wake up. So we needed good contacts to call, emails, addresses. So we did a time and accuracy study to look at the right tool and invest in the right tool for the team. We did Zoom Info, we did data.com, we did Google, just a Google search, that would be free, LinkedIn Premium, and Hoovers, since we already owned it. We did a time and accuracy study using just 5 companies. I knew them well, so I knew what the answer should be. Went off and sent some people to do this study. Turns out that Hoovers is the best. It really is. Wait, don't write it down. I'm not done. Hoovers is the best on all those things. Zoom Info is second best. I would say LinkedIn is third best if you kind of stack rank them. Now let me give you the costs per user. Yeah, this is why you're gonna put your pen down. Hoovers is $2,000 per user per year. LinkedIn is premium, is $703 per user per year. And Zoom Info is $800 per user per year. They'll make a deal for you. That's list price. So Hoovers wasn't so drastically better that we were going to spend an additional $1,200. Plus, it does integrate Zoom Info into Salesforce, so you can immediately update the information. That's my latest find. We're in love with it. It's brand new. 2 weeks ago, we signed the PO. We love it. So great investment. I would strongly urge you to look at that tool.
Any other comments on that?
I'd say, a big, in addition to just having a CRM, and we leverage Google Docs and other, not so scalable tools, but I personally love, sometimes I manage my team using Atlassian products, depending on the project. I like what we have been able to do in terms of building a community. We have a very technical blog, and it's open for anyone in the company to publish on a topic that they're passionate about. It's externally facing blog, and I'd say that's one of our best sales tools and lead generation tools, because it's not salesy. It just talks about problems and topics that we've encountered and how we solve them, and people appreciate that. So if you're in those types of areas where you can, especially deep technical areas, if you're doing a bunch of research and work in fields that are interested to a large community, use what you've learned to grow your community.
Is that would that be a quasi-user group-ish kind of thing? Because we have a highly technical user community as well. And so that blog, I'm not understanding, it sounds great.
It's just general. It's a company, it's blog.falcon.com.
Okay.
Yeah, we just talk about different denial of service attacks, we talk about cryptography, we talk about what we see on the internet. Occasionally we'll talk about specific customers who have done really interesting things with our product, but it's not developer focused. No.
This is related to what I said on the marketing panel, that the sales and marketing tactics for addressing a developer audience are very different than addressing a line of business executive. And it's so funny because I have one portfolio company that sells to developers in general. And when you talk to those customers, they say things like, just don't send me a salesperson, right? I want, send me an engineer. I only want to talk to engineers. I don't want to talk to any of those salespeople. At their largest customers, we place an engineer on site. It just happens the engineer has a quota too, but it's his or her job to make the customer be successful with the product. So why don't we use this chance to see if there's questions from the audience, and then we're going to turn the next section to talking about some of the internal organizational issues in sales and marketing alignment. Any questions so far, Ms. Galen? Sure.
You had talked about having engineering in the beginning, doing the sales part. Did that help for sales as it went along, or that have a better understanding of engineering and sales, have a better understanding once engineering had worked with sales in the beginning?
So can I just repeat the question so it gets on the video, which is, so is it helpful to have to have engineering tag along with sales early in the company so that the engineers really understand the customer's perspective and, can help inform the salespeople on the product and help inform the product on the customer?
Yeah.
Ellen, go ahead.
For us, having engineering join in the sales meetings was very helpful because we had super technical questions and we had worked with another provider and all these issues had come up and they were super, super specific. So not having to go from a salesperson, have it translated to engineering, then come back was really helpful. And then we also did a very, very specific and very deep technical test. And that involved a lot of work with engineering to solve a lot of problems because our scale was so great. And having that direct contact with engineering and having some people who were really excited about working with our company was great to show us that if we had a problem, because we know we will, and we didn't know what it was going to be, we had people that we were very connected to, that we trusted would be able to help us, would be willing to help us, and that we weren't going to be left hanging with the salesperson who might not be able to translate our question back to engineering and get us help very quickly.
Any other questions on scaling, knowing when to scale, early sales? Okay, let's talk a little bit about company organization. So I'll start a couple of questions so we can talk generally. Part of scaling is bifurcating, creating specialization in the organization, right? So, for example, how do you know when you should segment your go-to-market into different channels, whether it's inside sales and outside sales, or channel partners, and as the company expands and addresses different segments of the market, it tends to have more and more arms. So maybe let's talk about that question, and then we'll get to talking about our marketing sisters.
So I'm biased because of my history in managing and building sales teams. I believe that at the right time when the decision is made, after you've done your market research and you've tested and had conversations with potential clients and so on, I'm an start with inside always. So if you can start out, I've just had a lot of success with inside sales teams selling highly technical things with the right technical people by your side. And there's so many different ways that you can make that a personal sale, that even though it's on the phone, it's over the phone, it's WebEx, and so on and so forth. There's little tips and tricks and so on. But that way you continue to, you keep your cost of sales typically much lower and all those things that we all know happen. So I'm biased to always start with inside as well to start, and then as you start experimenting, going up market or doing additional kinds of selling and additional more complex selling, then you might want to experiment with field sales, but for the most part, I always had success starting inside first.
Other points of view? Agreement?
At Reddit, we haven't really used inside sales because we just had so much inbound interest. So we've been super lucky.
I would have loved that.
It's not always prioritized, it's not always, it's more like what comes in.
Does anyone remember bingo responses? Do you remember bingo responses? Oh, good Lord. I understand the pain that, you have to get through that.
Yeah, and so we're at a point where we need to start thinking a little bit more, in a more structured way to bring on more people. A lot of it is really, how can you organize your team so they're not stepping on each other, right? So if that's by geography, or if it's more natural verticals, or if it's inside, out, there's a lot of different ways to structure. There's not one right answer. You can do, a lot of different ways, but it's really like make sure your team knows who's working on which customer, so you don't have people stumbling all over each other and a lot of time wasted in trying to coordinate.
We'll have to talk. I have some ideas. Because that is an issue. That can be an issue. And if it's not set up correctly to start, then you have to live with what you've created for a while, and that's tough to change.
Right, I think that, this is one of the issues that we see as the companies grow. So often they start with inside, then the deal size migrates enough that actually you have to send someone in person to ask for a multi-$100,000 order. And then as the companies grow and they become multi-product companies, it's sort of the same as, when Symantec either acquires a small company or launches a new product line, you have to incubate a new thing with specialists. And those specialists are incented purely around their product specialty. But then you've got the generalist account managers. And that's always a point of gear grind is somebody wants to have account control, yet somebody else wants to sell her new widget into the same account. And so you might have a multi-million-dollar account where you've got somebody, bring it up saying, hey, I've got this new $25,000 thing, and then the client is flummoxed about why am I being called a second time for this different thing? And so I think those kind of points of inflection cause a lot of friction in the sales field force, especially. And trying to create the incentives and the structures to get everybody to play nicely together is a real trick, and there's a whole consulting industry that specializes in that.
We're a little bit on the opposite end where we, because we're in advertising, we're selling ads, we want people to come back and buy more ads, but we don't have a separate account management team, so our key team is more of the elephant hunter, so they go out and they want to find new customers, and we're not harvesting the customers that we've already brought on board. So we're at the point where now we need to add account management so we can harvest that.
So for us, it's our sales organization started heavily focused on solutions engineers, so very technical product. A lot of the sales required, consultative type and onboarding type of support. So we have sales engineers, salespeople, and account managers. And then what will be interesting as your companies grow is how does business development interact with sales and interact with marketing, that triangle that the previous panel was talking about. So in certain cases, you may have, for example, partnerships or distributor relationships where oftentimes, you have to be crystal clear internally on what does the distributor do versus what does the salesperson internally do to prevent the situation where you may give two different quotes to an end customer. So that I personally find that as a company grows, it takes a couple of cycles to get that coordination going internally. So it's very important to put people in a room and make sure that everyone's talking to each other, that they share pipelines both as like VARs and distributors and partners, and what's in the sales pipeline. It's very important to have that communication internally set up as early as possible.
So is there can you talk about specifically how do you do that? Does it have to happen in in a weekly meeting or call, or are you using the Salesforce as your dashboard for registering leads when they come from outside? What are you doing to create that crispness about who owns the account and who has the next action?
Some tricks that I have used is, yes, of course, we all share pipelines. So, the BD team has access to the sales team's pipeline, they have access to the BD partner's pipeline, and certain things are marked and tagged in the way that works for our sales process. But one thing that I found very important is to make sure that every single one of our salesperson people is trained on how do our partnerships and reseller programs work. So then they can recognize when an opportunity is a partnership opportunity or a reseller opportunity versus like a direct sales opportunity, and they can do kind of the initial positioning and then bring it on to the right person on the business development side. So it's very important to have the teams coordinate and talk to each other and like each other and make sure that they understand their roles and what tools and resources and APIs and integrations are available to them. What's been great about Cloudflare is that we are all co-located, so we have two offices. Our major office is in San Francisco, and then we have an engineering and technical support office in London. So we sit together, so it's very easy for us to talk to each other and make sure that we're sending the right messages internally.
Okay, so that was a little bit about channel and sales reputation. Well, let's ask the challenging question that came up on our conference call. Really, do you need marketing? Or when do you need marketing? When does sales need marketing? When does a startup need marketing?
So, when, oh my gosh. I'm, again, biased, go figure. I think that there is a place for marketing at every, at the startup. You have 10 people, you gotta have 1 or 2 of those people dedicated to marketing and messaging and starting up the social selling, which is probably one of the first places you wanna kind of check out and test your messaging and so on, the notion of social selling, right? But I just read about that today and I love it. It's good, my new mantra that I'm gonna walk in the door tomorrow morning singing. But I think that there's a place for it immediately. It just depends on what role they're going to play. Just like sales, there's a place for it immediately, but what role is it going to play? And it just depends on the product, the market, and so on.
At Reddit, we still actually don't have a separate marketing person, and it's definitely a challenge for us. So a lot of the collateral is done by the sales themselves. It's a challenge. It's
Why don't we have a marketing person? I think we've never felt like we needed one, and we've been able, I think, can you use the microphone as well?
people have been very passionate about Reddit themselves, so they know the product deeply and they feel like they can market it because they're so passionate about it and they're, long-time users, who use the product quite a bit, they can point to different things and really sell the product well and sell the company well.
Can I challenge that with all the inbound leads that you guys have, I'd be saying the same thing.
Yep. I hear you.
We got plenty. We can't even handle what we have.
Yeah.
So,
I think, so why are people spending time building marketing collateral? I don't know. We're working on it. So it's one of the things where we've been lucky that a lot of stuff comes inbound, so we haven't had to have, somebody dedicated to marketing. We've got, we're in the press a lot, so having somebody who can help manage the press. A lot of startups now are relying on free marketing, somewhat free marketing in getting publicity, in launching products, and all sorts of different activities, and having somebody actually actively manage them who is dedicated to that is really helpful. Right now, we're like somebody goes on vacation and we don't know who's actually going to tweet out the new launch, and they're kind of like, well, their personal account is tied to it, so we can't get into it. It's kind of haphazard because we are a startup and we're moving really fast. We've been lucky that we've doubled every year, and that growth has really allowed us to do things in not the best way, but it's a good problem to have so far, and we're looking at now trying to bring on board some more marketing expertise.
Maria, any comment on this bit?
We have similar kind of situation as Reddit. We have a very light marketing team, and as the business development person, I'm dying to have more of a marketing team, especially when we go to various events. So for example, we only have 2 or 3 major conferences per year that we attend and make a big splash around, but by virtue of not having an events person or a marketing team, that puts a lot of strain on a lot of preparation and logistics on my team, and I'd much rather than be out and talking to partners. So there are a lot of advantages to not having a marketing organization if your product can, thrive without a marketing organization, but sometimes you need it. It just depends on what product you're selling. So in our case, tons of interest inbound. As I said, our blog's very popular. Our biggest marketing spend is on sending T-shirts to our community and users. Stickers are very popular as well. It's really, you have to find that right fit into your specific ecosystem and product.
what does the T-shirt say?
They just have a lot of logos.
Yeah, in the same vein, Splunk, when Splunk first started, it's a multi-billion-dollar market company, but it was very early on self-serve sales to developers and IT managers, and one of their biggest marketing campaign spends were T-shirts that said IT hero, and it was so it was the person who saved the day, figured out what was wrong with the network and fixed it, and got everything back, that everybody looked up to. And that was, and the recognition was one of these Splunk T-shirts. they're very, I'm gonna bring this back up to a level of really understanding the customer and what your customer's motivations are drives your go-to-market motion. So, in the case of Maureen's big customer, multi-million-dollar Symantec customers, there was probably a whole range of programs and golf outings and other, strategic selling activities. And with these really highly technical products, it can be, maybe it's, some recognition on GitHub or the engineer's dream t-shirt kind of thing. So, but you wouldn't know that if you weren't intimate with a customer. I think that's a lot of what the early sales role, just as I said with marketing, the very early sales role in startup companies is getting inside the head of the customer and trying to understand his or her motivations, bring them back to the engineers so that they know we'd love to build. I mean, if you've got engineering that's innovating and, doing the blue sky, you don't even really want this yet, but in order to be able to get people to give you money for it, you have to understand what the motivation is.
It's interesting, I think, as with Cloudflare, a lot of startups start out with their co-founders or founders going out and doing all of that work. So they are generally very good at selling, so they don't necessarily need the marketing materials to go with it. So you wind up with these companies that are more technical, more sales focused, and less marketing oriented.
So, questions about that last section? Okay, in the middle, our questions.
For your salespeople, if you want to send them to actually actively go out and get new customers, what's the compensation package? Like base salary plus commission plus bonus, and what's the percentage and what's the total amount?
So the question is, what is the structure of the salesperson's compensation? How much base, how much variable, how do you assess?
So we're very typical. We actually are 50-50 split. That's very typical, right? I mean, even the people that I'm hiring, when I'm asking what they're needing, what their requirements are, it's a 50-50 split, which is where they're coming from. One of the things that we did that was very interesting for those of you making compensation plans, we tested this last year. Sharon, I don't know if you knew about this particular detail, but this was really interesting and it proved to change behavior drastically. And we kept this going this year. So we wanted to go up market, right? We're trying to sell bigger deals, go up market, incent the sales folks to be concentrating and thinking about it, making a more complex sale, selling more product in the first sale. And so, compensation plans for salespeople have big accelerators when they reach their annual target. They all have them, right? So what we did last year instead is we took the accelerator concept and we built it into the size of the very first deal. So for example, if they were going to, instead of earning, let's call it, 20% on a $25,000 deal, which that was about the average, our new average selling price. In the new compensation plan, we're going to give them 30% on that same deal. Now they don't get accelerators at the end. We took away the accelerators, but we built them into the very first part, or into the very first deal, if it was the size that we needed it to be. That one shift alone, last year contributed greatly to our going up market, average selling price increase, and so on. That was a huge contributor, changing behavior, right? That's what compensation plans do. So that's an interesting thing that we tested last year, and we're keeping it going this year. In my recruiting of all these new salespeople, huge game changer. Because a couple of the people that I've brought in, the OTE was the same as their last company. But there were challenges, obviously, that's why they were looking at us. I shared with them kind of the structure of our comp plan. They were blown away. My husband's a sales guy. He would love to have this comp plan. Just because, again, all salespeople, you get your accelerator at the end. This one, so you could partake right in the beginning. So that was a big change for us.
Curious, have you seen more equity as part of the sales package? It seems like in the last few years, salespeople are now more interested in having some equity.
Everybody asks. Everybody does. It's where the business development rep is asking as well, the SDR, BDR person. Yeah, and I think that is definitely a very Silicon Valley cultural issue, because outside of Silicon Valley, you don't have that as much. People haven't seen the sort of heydays on equity that we have here. And this is why Silicon Valley has increased its market share of venture capital funding every quarter since inception, where now 55% of all these funds come just to the Bay Area. It's pretty incredible. Okay, so any questions here? Yeah.
Yeah, so the question, we are pre-funding startup, but we're getting traction, we're setting big brands. The question is, how do you find salespeople to sell big brands that don't have this and struggling to find them? So that's the question. The follow-up question to that is, we're not increasing paying base salary, so I was suggesting just pure commission and base compensation.
Okay, so let me just repeat the question. So the question is, as an early stage, pre-funding, but bootstrapped company targeting some of the large brands, how do you attract salespeople? How do you attract quality salespeople to your early stage company? And then what if you don't have enough revenue to cover base salary? Is it possible to attract quality salespeople on a commission-only plan? Do you have family members that might come on board? I mean, I don't mean to make a joke of it. I know it's a challenge. It's absolutely a challenge. I think about all of the salespeople, the senior salespeople I've hired that are game changers. They are absolutely game changers, and that's why we hire them and we pay a bit more money. Of those people, I'm thinking in my mind, they wouldn't come work for you unless they had a big equity play and they were passionate about what was happening in the company. And that's still tough. It's still very tough what you're asking them to do. Because you're looking for a senior person, frankly. And it doesn't have to be senior, meaning really, really old. It's someone that's a seasoned professional, used to selling to the Fortune 100s or the Fortune 300s. And they're rare, they're hard to find, and they want to get paid. Although I will say that I think it is, I see many more bootstrapped, meaning revenue funded, right? That's what bootstrapping is. Your customers are paying to help you build a business. Enterprise companies, and then other kinds of companies, because you can, the classic way that we used to build software companies before people invested tens of millions of dollars into pre-revenue companies was you'd almost go with a consulting project with the customer, have them pay you to build something, right? The founder, the technical founder saying, I have a vision, I can build this for you. The customer gives you whatever, $200, $500 million order. You spend a couple of months building that. You use, the margin that you created that to go and sell the next customer. And sooner or later, you've got enough customers layered up that you actually can hire another person to go and keep selling while you go back to building, or you keep selling and you hire an engineer to help you keep building the product. But that kind of layering on of customer contracts, and in particular, the sort of time and materials work to get paid up front for something that doesn't exist yet, is a very time-honored way of building a software business. For example, the CIO at Qualcomm, if I'm not mistaken, they do that at Qualcomm. They're very much in a position, and they have been. They announced it at SweetWorld 2 years ago, and it was interesting what they were doing with kind of the side project of funding companies to help them grow. So just to bootstrap onto what you were saying, or piggyback onto what you were saying.
Just a follow-up comment to that, but assume for a second that you were funded. Would you suggest finding salespeople at conferences? Like, I think people at seminar, so how do you go about an vertical investment when you want to fund this?
So how do you find great salespeople? And how do you find the first couple of great salespeople? Yeah. So, they're out there. I've had such great luck, and I know you're watching every penny. So this next comment I'm going to make, and you're going to be like, oh, I gotta pay that. I am telling you, I have found the best salespeople using professional sales recruiters. And the fact is that it's gonna cost you. But if you find the right person, it's a game changer. It really is can be a game changer for the organization if you find that right person. So it doesn't cost anything to look, right? You don't pay until you hire. It's just an idea. I was, by the way, fully against it, never used recruiters before, thought they were too expensive. And now I'm a believer because of the success we've had. And some of the people that I've hired through these people are going to be game changers for us in our growth.
But I think and that's definitely true for scaling. I would say for the youngest companies, you have to know something really special to have a right to be starting your company. So you have really great product inside, you have really, something deeply technical that's game changing, or you have some very intimate knowledge of the customer's need that's differential from everybody else in the market that lets you, see an angle. And if your differentiation is really understanding the customer need better than your competitors, then you probably got that by having a relationship with the customer. Ask the customer, who's their favorite salesperson? What sales rep is bringing you the right solutions? Which sales rep is a really great relationship but is hamstrung by working in a company that's not delivering on its product roadmap. So, and it's having the right to ask those kind of questions is real validation of your relationship with the customer or with partners, right? I think that's a lot of the way that companies scale up is being that magnet for talent. And that being a magnet for talent means having the right to look for the very best people.
Yeah, and if you're willing to do some of that work yourself, LinkedIn obviously is a great resource to just start searching LinkedIn and just target companies where they have some good salespeople. They do because they're a good company. They know how, in my case, I was looking for, do you know how to have a SaaS conversation? Right? Do you know how to talk cloud? Because these are things, if I don't have to teach you that, we're ready to go.
Right, it's amazing. I mean, just for one of my fundraisers for a nonprofit, I just went on LinkedIn and looked for people who had, who worked in certain industries and had, listed way down on their interest list an interest in something. But then I had to send them a personal note on LinkedIn. Why was I contacting them? What was my relevance to them? And inviting them to an event, right? And that it was hard work, handwork. It took a couple of days to build a list, but I built a list of about 50 target people, of tech executives with an interest in a really obscure sport, to invite to an event. And now, that's going to be the basis of ongoing marketing campaigns as well. So let's take one more question in the back, and then we'll just do that circle up the last thing, your favorite new thing in your executive role. So last question, Jeff.
Andrew, you talked about inside sales teams. Is there a particular deal size where the inside sales function works better than others?
So the question is, what's the right range of deal sizes to address with an inside sales organization?
So at this company, at Arena, we've sold $100,000 deals over the phone, and we sold a whole bunch of deals under 10K and everything in between over the phone. So I think it has to not so much do with deal size as it has to do with complexity of the company that we're selling to. So for example, a 500-person company to us in product development where they're making a product, a hard product, that they're selling and they're making and they're engineering and so on and so forth. Maybe they're manufacturing overseas, but they've got a complex product development environment. That's going to be a tough sale over the phone. The first deal size might be 25K to start, but it's a huge growth opportunity. But more than likely, because we've got five different departments we need to go discover, sell to, and so on, the level of complexity is more, will dictate more if we need to go on site versus size of deal. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Just one quick thing to add to that, you can also look around and see what your competitors are doing. So if you have key target accounts and they have in the field, live-in, kind of constantly there person or a team, when you're talking about large Fortune 100 types of accounts, then you kind of know that at some point you have to grow your own organization to maybe meet that, unless you're doing something completely new in terms of support needed for the product and stuff like that. But it's a good compass to see what your competitors are doing.
Okay, great. So as our wrap up, your favorite new thing, person, place, tool, technique, program, phone, Ellen.
One of the things that we have started to do more and more at Reddit is just work on the product. So for us, our ad product hadn't changed that much, and in the past year and a half, we've made a lot of changes to it. We've just experimented a ton. So the ability to experiment, track what happens after you experiment, and tweak the product to figure out what works for our customers and to target different types of customers.
Tool for that, or you built it yourself because you're engineers?
We did the painful process of building it ourselves. We do have a third party who provides our ad server, and we work with them, and that was also kind of painful because I think they only had like 6 people who started working with us, so it was kind of, we had people, they had people, and we just trying to put together whatever we could, what we could, but now that we have more people, the ability to test different things and to see what the results are, because we have so much scale, we're able to see it pretty quickly, and that's a huge help.
Tested it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Maria?
Well, my favorite tool is right now it's Atlassian's, the suite of Atlassian products. So I actually have started managing, our business development team is very technical and working very closely with product and our engineering organization. So for the longest time I thought, okay, we'll manage everything using business tools, but now I've switched everything onto the same tools that our engineering organization uses. So Jira, Wiki, all the things that it's made life much easier because they can look at what's important to us and we can look at kind of progress that they have made. So highly recommend it if you're running technical sales team or technical business development team.
We do the same, and it's great because those tools have become very easy to use. So it's super user friendly, and everybody can use the same ones.
Mine is a person. So never before have I ever had an administrator in my entire life. And I have one now, and I like her better than my husband, I think. My life is so much
Everyone
easier.
needs a work life.
Oh my God. She is mine. No, actually, I am being facetious, although she's fabulous, and oh my gosh, I'm so thankful. But ZoomInfo, it's life-changing the last few weeks and has saved so much, the productivity improvements, it's off the chart.
Awesome. So thank you, ladies. Really, really insightful. I learned a lot. I wish I had ever gone to real sales training and carried that. But thank you so much for all your insights tonight, and thank you to the audience. Really great interaction, great quality questions. We couldn't have had the kind of content here this afternoon if you guys hadn't, except for people, have not been engaged. So thank you so much, and have a really nice day.